Okay, and welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great, Jamie. Feeling better, man?
My immune system's basically a tennis racket. Everything gets through. I get these like weird 24-hour like slash 48-hour colds all the time, and I feel like I've been hit by a brick, and then I'm perfectly fine. But yeah, I'm good, thanks. Have you been playing anything interesting the past few weeks?
Yeah, I've been absolutely hooked on Mighty Doom. I've been playing that every day, and I'm on the last expansion for Quake. And yeah, so I'm really surprised. I'm not the biggest mobile gaming guy, but since it was a first party game and it was a Doom game and it kind of was fun pop art style, I was like, why not? I'll give it a try. And I'm absolutely hooked. I've been sinking a lot of time into that every day.
Nice. I've been playing a bit of Mighty Doom as well. It's a good mobile game. You can just like play it with one thumb and you're good to go. It basically auto aims. It's a pretty fun mobile game, and I think it's about 250 megabytes. I think something around that, which is okay. When you compare it to things like Diablo Immortal, which is 25 gigabytes for a mobile game.
Good grief.
Yeah, bit of a difference, but yeah, Mighty Doom's good. I've also been playing Hogwarts Legacy. That game's again, it's just never ending. It's like The Witcher 3. There's just endless side quests and things to do. And of course, Mass Effect. Like, one of the games I want to rant about is something I've been playing. That's Atomic Heart. Came out in February, launched in Xbox Game Pass day one, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. But as people may know, it takes me forever to finish games, like absolutely forever. And because of that, I get to experience patches as I'm playing them. So they put out a new patch for Atomic Heart about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and it was to let people change the field of view. The number one thing people wanted in Atomic Heart, because like when you play first-person shooters a lot, you get used to certain fields of view, and for me personally, I like 90 to 95 degrees. Anyway, so they put the update out. It was like 60 plus gigabytes for the patch. And, when it comes to big patches these days, I kind of just roll my eyes. We deal with it on a weekly basis. Anyway, I get the patch. I change the field of view. It plays wonderful. It's basically, alternate Soviet era Bioshock. And for a lot of people that have this patch, it completely broke the achievement list. You can't earn achievements. And as someone that checks the achievement list on some games, because like this game has like an achievement for destroying 5 enemies while drunk, because vodka is a consumable item. Well, that isn't an achievement you can earn now because they're all broken. And I just hope that now that there's a lot of people playing it, over 5 million players, they'll actually get around to patching it, because like when it comes to them as a developer, Mundfish, they never talk about like upcoming patches, which is disappointing, but whatever. Just wondering, have you got around to playing Atomic Heart yet?
I haven't yet. It's in my ever growing backlog that kind of rivals the Library of Alexandria, but I want to play it.
Well, it's good. Hopefully they'll patch it by then, but it's just an annoying thing. There's a lot of people that hunt achievements in the community, and when you're playing a game and you defeat a boss, you kind of expect an achievement to pop, and then you realize something's wrong. But hopefully they'll patch that soon. Other than that, even though we were off the show last week, I want to talk about Diablo Immortal. Not Diablo Immortal, Diablo 4, the beta. That has to be one of the most fun betas I've ever played for a game. It was amazing. Like, Logan, you didn't play it, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't take part in the beta, but I've heard lots of good things.
Like, I'll admit, it's super easy to get into. Like, it's super easy. Because when you think Diablo, you think, oh, maybe it's a PC-centric game where the controls are weird and, it has overly complicated menus. Because some PC games do have that, because they expect you to use a mouse and keyboard. But Diablo 4, it's perfect. It's a perfect chill game. You can play it on, like, normal, and it's just a breeze. No challenge whatsoever, and you can just relax. And it's a very good, like, action RPG. I mean, there were millions of people playing that beta, and it was just so much fun. It comes out in June, and like Microsoft's going all out with that marketing. We talk about on the show a lot how Microsoft doesn't market stuff as much, as much as they used to, but I'm not even kidding. Every time I turn on the TV, there's a Diablo Immortal ad constantly. Is it like that in the US?
Oh, sorry, hit wrong button. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of Diablo advertisements, and like the custom logo pops up for Xbox, and then it's all over the dashboard. Even Sarah Bond in an interview, a few interviews she's had, like one with the X cast in the UK, she brought up Diablo and ABK and stuff, and was talking about them basically like their first party now. Like the deal's not quite done, but they feel good enough about it that they're talking about it openly, and we're talking about that and really promoting it. So they absolutely are all in on the Blizzard IPs.
Yeah, it's funny like how like we'll get into the whole Activision thing later in the show, but like all eyes have been on Call of Duty, and in the background you've had this monster just waiting, Diablo 4. It's going to be massive, and like, there's been no eyes on that game whatsoever when it comes to like any of the people from the FTC or the CMA. Nobody's talked about it. It's just COD, Call of Duty this, Call of Duty that. Nothing on Blizzard. And Blizzard's going to be huge for Xbox and Game Pass. Like as soon as they start putting things like World of Warcraft in Game Pass, it's going to be ridiculous. But anyway, that's a topic for later. But yeah, Diablo 4, incredible. What's funny is like I've played lots of betas for games. I've been doing betas for video games since early 360 game days, and you expect bugs, but in this Diablo 4 beta, I didn't experience any bugs at all, nothing, which was kind of cool because you just kind of expect them all the time. And one of the really cool things I found out about Diablo right before the beta ended, I'm not even kidding, it was about 20 minutes before the beta ended, the game has transmog. So if people don't know, transmogrification means you can, like, I was playing as the sorcerer in the Diablo beta, and I have to admit, the armor in that game for the sorcerer class looks terrible. You look like you're trying to dress as Loki, but you've only got $5. Terrible. But thankfully, you can change your armor to look like whatever skin you. So if you pick up an armor piece, it becomes a skin, and you can unlock it, and you can use that, even though you can carry forward the stats of other pieces. So similar to Hogwarts Legacy and stuff. Really cool. I hope more games start using transmog, because there's a lot of games where you get really crap armor. I love The Witcher 3, and I thought most of the armor in that game, personally, was terrible. Like, I wore the starting armor in The Witcher 3 for the first 60 hours, because everything I picked up, I'm like, I look like a clown. So like if people notice when I post screenshots and videos on Twitter, you'll notice sometimes I'm wearing the base armor in games because I'm so picky, and I think just some things don't work, but that's just me. But yeah, Diablo, really good. It comes out this June and all that stuff. Anyway, let's get into the topics. So Xbox Game Pass and Game Pass quests and Microsoft rewards. It's all this ecosystem which I think people should take advantage of. Like, if you do all of your Game Pass quests and your searches on Bing, you can essentially pay for your Game Pass every single month, meaning Game Pass is free. That's how I got £100 off my Xbox Series X at launch. I've bought about a dozen games with Microsoft Reward points. I bought Hogwarts Legacy with Microsoft Rewards points. It cost me nothing. And with that being said, they change it all the time because it's still technically in beta all these years later. And there's been some changes. So you used to be able to get 50 points per day when you get an achievement on the Xbox Rewards app on the console. They've moved that to the mobile app on Game Pass, the Game Pass app. And now it's limited to Game Pass games. So it doesn't count for other games in general, which it's a bit disappointing, but it's a bit of a change. Like, Logan, I'm guessing the same thing happened in the US.
Yeah, as of today, it is only for Game Pass games, the daily 50 achievement points thing. Obviously, I liked it when it worked for any game because, Resident Evil comes out or whatever, and you're like, I want to play Resident Evil right now. I'm focused on that, and I'm, cranking out achievements on it, but I don't get rewarded for it because it doesn't meet the game. It's not in Game Pass. But on the other hand, I get it. Them wanting to tie it to their subscription, and it is Microsoft rewards points. It's from a Microsoft game. Yada yada. I get it, but it would have been nice if they kept it. But I understand why they changed it.
Yeah, it's just a small change. Like whenever I get a new game, I normally plan out the times when I'd play them because I want to get my 50 points per day, and I make sure I get an achievement each day of the year to get my 50 points because it all adds up. And it changed. Whatever, it's a business thing. I get it. Unfortunate, but we kind of have to deal with it. I mean, hell, it's better than no Microsoft reward points. I mean, I've only had access to Microsoft rewards since October 2019, right? And there's other people that live in the UK that have had access to it for years before that. So it's weird. It's all over the place. Not all countries are supported yet. And even in some countries, the points are all over the place. I know someone that lives like halfway down the country, and the points they get for quests and just things on the rewards app is completely different. So hey, it is what it is. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, I want to talk about Aliens Dark Descent because on Xbox, like I love the fact that we get PC centric games, and some of them have been pretty big. Flight Simulator. We have a bunch of MMOs. We have the Elder Scrolls Online, and I'm always wanting more PC games to come over because it should work both ways. And one of those genres we don't see on console a lot is strategy. And there's a game coming out, I think it's in June. It's called Aliens Dark Descent. Now, the first trailer for that game made people think it was a twin-stick shooter. And, I read the description for it, and I knew it was going to be a strategy game. And as soon as you say a strategy game, by the way, it puts people off. Like, they are thinking, like, I do not want to play a strategy game. And they've done something genius with this game. So normally in a strategy game like this, like an XCOM style game, you move in every individual squad mate into different positions. Each squad mate has a different weapon which you control and all that stuff. And it's kind of like a big game of chess. But to get new people into the genre and to make it so anyone can play, even if you don't like strategy games, you move the entire squad as one piece. So let's say you have to use a plasma cutter to open a door. To escape some aliens, right? You move the entire squad to the door, and the appropriate squad member with that plasma torch will open the door, meaning you don't have to do anything. And they've made it so simple that anyone will be able to get into it. Like XCOM is hard for people to get into because XCOM is essentially 3D chess with different variables and different percentages, and you could be aiming a shotgun at someone point blank range and still miss. Like there's memes all over the internet for it. But in this game, it's not like that. They've made it super easy for people to get into, and I want more Alien games. I loved Alien Isolation. I love the fact that we got Fireteam Elite, which was a ton of fun. Logan, have you been keeping up with this one at all?
Yeah, this is one that's definitely on my list. I love Alien. I love strategy games. It's a good mix to me. Like, I still hold out hope we get an Isolation 2 someday. I just, bring me more of these license type games. Like, I know a lot of people want new IPs, which is great. And I absolutely want that too. But some of these licensed franchises really need some more games to help flesh out the lore in the worlds. And, Aliens is absolutely one of them.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Aliens, I love the IP. Not all the films were great. I thought the last Alien film was pretty bad. I love Prometheus. I love the trilogy. I even enjoyed Alien 4 Resurrection, right? I know there's not a lot of people that would say that, but as an action film, it's pretty fun. But when it comes to video games, yeah, right, we don't see many licensed games. Like during the original PlayStation, original Xbox, PlayStation 2, GameCube generation, we were seeing licensed titles all the time. And then during the 360 generation, we were getting them every so often. And it's been less and less per generation. But thankfully, this game's coming out. There is a rumor that there's a new Aliens game in development, but it's based on Dead Space. Now,
That sounds incredible to me.
Yeah, as soon as I heard that, I kind of went nuts. Like, that's what people want. Like, we've had Colonial Marines, we've had the survival games. There is a new Alien survival game in development at NACON, but there's no trailer yet. It's not Isolation 2. There's even a Terminator survival game coming out, although I do hope that just plays like Alien Isolation. Um, but yeah, we are going to see more licensed games, thankfully. You know, hell, we even get an Indiana Jones game, and we haven't had a new one for about 20 years. And I'm not including the Wii game from 2008. I'm just not including it. But yeah, good times for Alien fans. We're finally getting some stuff. And there's also a new Alien series coming to Disney Plus, and I think it'll be like Hulu in the US, like later this year or next year. Anyway, good time to be an Alien fan. And Warpig in chat said something about, oh yeah, Starship Troopers. So Starship Troopers, there's actually 2 games. One's out, one's coming out. One's a first-person shooter co-op game, and the other is called Starship Troopers Terran Command. It's an RTS game, but it's only available on PC. The first-person shooter is also only going to be available on PC. So just if you want these games to come to console, request the game constantly to the developers. We've seen games get ported to other platforms just by people asking. So if you want those Starship Troopers games on an Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, whatever, just keep mentioning it to the developers. I would love Starship Troopers to be an active IP in the gaming space, but it's not really a thing, unfortunately. And I love Starship Troopers. Anyway, we'll move on. You know, about 20 minutes into the show, if people enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. We've had 2 weeks off, so YouTube doesn't really do the sharing thing all that well. And if you want to support the show with super chats, we'll read things out and all that stuff. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, so E3. This is a bit of a sad topic because I've always loved E3. I've been watching E3 since the 2000s. It's been a staple in the gaming space. It gets to June, you get this big week of gaming events where all these different companies get together and they show their upcoming titles. Sometimes the game's coming out months after the event, sometimes a year, sometimes multiple years, 3 or 4. And E3 used to be a trade show. It used to be where developers showed off games, where places like GameStop and all that stuff would show up and say, would this game be good enough to stock? And all these journalists would go there to report on the games. But over time, in the mid 2000s, when E3 really came back, it became a trade show and a place for fans. You know, journalists would report there, but E3 started opening it up over the years, and you had more YouTube content creators going, and it became more community focused and more user driven. And basically, for years it was that way. Like, gamers would meet up, play new games, talk about them, cover them on their own channels. And, it's somewhere I've always wanted to go. Like, in E3 2020, I had plans to go to LA and go there. And obviously, we know what happened in the world. That couldn't happen. And I still want to go there someday. Think about it like this. Logan, we had a brand new generation of consoles launch without an E3. Isn't that kind of sad?
That's insanity. I mean, growing up in the 90s, early 2000s, it was like E3 was where everything happened. Like, you would announce your new console, your tentpole franchises would have their newest titles revealed, you'd have updates on games, it'd be social networking for all the devs, and all these deals would happen. You'd have merch for sale. It would just be constant flow of information and hype. It was gamers' Christmas for a whole week. And then the pandemic happened. Everybody knows all about that. The 2 years of drip feed and content, and then it led to Summer's Game Fest, and then people trying on potato-like cameras to stream game conferences. Eventually, they got it resolved, and everybody has pretty good quality now going forward. It seems like the industry has decided that, you know what, we like this new way of doing things, and we save a boatload of money and time and effort. So, yeah, we just don't want to do E3 anymore. Which sucks for those who really enjoyed it and love the nostalgia of it and, like that way of doing things. But I get it. But on the other hand, I really wish they would continue in some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, we expect things to change over the years. The way presentations are, gaming evolves all the time. But E3 was always the staple. No matter what happened, people enjoyed it. People liked it. And like as soon as the pandemic happened, and remember that first show we had from Microsoft where they were all using webcams to do the
hilarious.
yeah, to do
Yes.
like I'm a smaller content creator and I was using better equipment. Like than this like $1 trillion organization. But you know they got things better throughout the year and presentations got better, and I understand like at the time that's how they had to do it, you know, because of people's safety and that. But like E3 has been a staple, and then like early on in 2020, by the way, Warner Brothers Games were going to have their very first game showcase. Konami were thinking about doing another showcase. It was arguably, if the pandemic didn't happen, it would have been the biggest E3 in like a decade because of everyone was going to do a show. Activision apparently was thinking about doing a show. So we were going to see a lot of different shows. But early in 2020, I remember Jeff Keighley saying he didn't want to do E3 because he'd have his own little stage and talk about games and interview developers. He said it wasn't right. Something didn't feel right. The pandemic happened, and then he had Summer Games Fest, where in his show, he basically provided links to other shows. So Microsoft would have their showcase, he had the link. Sony would have their shows, he would have the link. Same with Ubisoft, EA. And like at that point, I was thinking that's taking advantage of the situation. Like, why that? If that was the case, I could run Summer Games Fest, right? I could plug these links into OBS and stream these events and do live showcases beforehand, talking about these games. And it's like, okay, at the time that was a thing, but I've noticed over the past few years, Jeff Keighley is pushing and pushing for him to be the face of gaming, right? Like, think about it like this: Germany. Every August has Gamescom, right? A German show held in Germany about a German show where German people go to visit and play games. And Jeff Keighley now does a thing called Opening Night Live in LA to show the biggest games of the event, rather than it being in Germany hosted by a German presenter. Isn't that a bit weird, Logan?
Yeah, it's kind of almost like just jumping in on the namesake of it and just going like, well, I can capitalize on an audience and people associating with Gamescom, even though it really isn't Gamescom. And like, I get it. I respect the hustle. Obviously, incredibly good at what he does, but it does seem a little odd to be able to take all these different satellite, streams of things and put them in a bundle and then call it your event. And, like, are you actually the one hosting everything? I mean, if you are, that's awesome and kudos, but I don't know. It's just odd to me.
And it's like, he has the Game Awards, which is his, and I get that. But, like, the BAFTA Awards was last week. And the BAFTA Awards, in my opinion, is the most prestigious game award. It's a black tie showcase. It's a pure game award show where they have hosts that know what they're talking about showing games off. Or I should say, giving these awards out. It's not a game show. There's no games announced there. There's no trailers. It's purely an award show. And he didn't post anything about it. And, like, I respect the dude, what he's brought to, like, the gaming space, but, like, every single time someone pulls out of E3, Ubisoft a few weeks ago, and, Microsoft and that, he makes an instant post about it, plugging Summer Games Fest. And then when E3 was finally closed off, like, a week ago, and they said that it's not happening, he literally, like, seconds later, posted about it, and it's like, that's taking advantage of it. I don't like that. It's a bit shady. I've never liked it when people do that. Like, why does Jeff Keighley have to control gaming? Why can't it be other different presenters, different companies? It has to be Jeff Keighley presenting the Jeff Keighley Showcase, hosted by Jeff Keighley, starring Jeff Keighley, produced by Jeff Keighley, everything Jeff Keighley, Jeff Keighley, Jeff Keighley. Like it's always been that way, and it's kind of weird. Like, from the outside looking in, it's strange. Anyway, but E3 gets cancelled. He plugs that event, and it's just sad because E3 for the past several years, decade or whatever, it's been a showcase event where people show up and play games. They, unite with other people and talk about games. But what's Jeff Keighley's showcase? It's a closed off event where people watch trailers online. It's not the same. It's definitely not the same. Like, Logan, can you remember the pop at E3 when Microsoft announced backwards compatibility? A feature, by the way, and like the crowd went nuts. You don't get that in a Summer Games Fest showcase, do you now?
No, and people like stood up and gave a resounding applause, and people were hooting and hollering and just thrilled that they finally got this feature that they had been requesting for years. And frankly, should have been there at the beginning, but that's another story. But just like something big like that happens, people, the crowd gets into it and is excited, or there's like like in the theaters when you saw Phantom Menace and Darth Maul first ignites the double lightsaber, and everybody in the theater's like, oh shoot, this is different. This is unexpected. Like, there's something about a live audience that has those, moments where something happens and they react, but that you can't get on just these digital streams. Like, you can have people popping off in the comments section, but that's not the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame, and like, it doesn't help that the ESA, basically the people in charge of the place where E3 is held, like they charge these companies millions of dollars every year to go there and host a space. It's like indie developers couldn't afford to go anymore because it's way too pricey. And honestly, to an extent, I can't blame developers from not wanting to do it there. Hopefully, E3 can come back in some other form, maybe in some other place. I don't know, some other state, doesn't really have to be LA. But yeah, it's unfortunate. It's just I don't see Summer Games Fest is the same thing, right? Hosting, like we used to have a week of game announcements of the new trailers, gameplay, interviews, all in 1 week, and now it's spread over months, and it's like it's not the same. It's not the same. Like Logan, remember in 2020 when they said like there's no more E3, and we had literally announcements spread over 5 months.
It was a sick joke. It was sadistic almost, like how slow drip there was of news. Like, Jeff Grubb, he did a great job and he started doing his list of like, okay, this event's going to happen here. This event's going to happen here. And he'd have them cataloged. And so everybody would flock to his page to see when something's happening. Or, like people were always updating with things, but then it would just be like little minute details about something like, oh, THQ Nordic is going to have a brief little thing. And then you show up and it's like, oh, it's just a 1 minute trailer for one thing and then some skins or something. And then you go another week or two before something else happens. And it was just dragged on.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully Jeff Grubb did actually like post like the list of everything because it was all over the place. Like I've been covering E3 on Twitter since 2013, and I normally post a list of when people's shows are. I couldn't do that for 2020. It was all over the place. It was impossible to keep up because all these companies were changing the times of their events. It was stupid. And now, no more E3. And yes, Microsoft's they having a dual showcase this year. They having their game showcase and then the Bethesda Starfield showcase, which is awesome. But normally we'd get, EA, Bethesda, Microsoft, Ubisoft, and Sony in that order. And now it's just not like that. And I think it's a shame. Gamers are missing out. Like the new generation, they're not going to experience E3 unless it comes back. And frankly, it's not the same. It's not the same doing these things online, personally. I'd be wondering, anyone chat, do you actually prefer the new way of things? Summer Games Fest with the live streams and stuff, rather than an E3. 1 week every year, rather than this one thing hosted by one dude. We'll move on. It's just I'm ranting a bit. Who knows? Maybe someday Jeff Keighley will be presenting this podcast. We'll move on. It's just a shame. Oh yeah, Mass Effect news. So it's a little bit of Mass Effect news, kind of. So the Mass Effect team currently making Mass Effect 4 early pre-production. They've moved on to Dragon Age Dreadwolf. Which is good and bad news. It's good as in they have the A team working on Dragon Age. The only downside is I hope they didn't move on to that game because it's in such a bad state. We did hear about a year and a half ago. It's full-on single player. It's not a live service game at all, which is great, thankfully. And all that stuff. But the Mass Effect team is now on it. Mark Dara, who was one of the people in charge of Dragon Age and worked on the Mass Effect games, is returned to BioWare. And basically, he did a documentary kind of on BioWare about a year ago on how terrible BioWare's development schedule is. Like Mass Effect 2 is considered a masterpiece. I talk about it every other month. It's every day. But basically, he was on about how their development cycle is terrible. And when he went over like how like 90% of the work on Mass Effect 2 got done in the last like 6 months.
BioWare magic.
Yeah, like to us, BioWare magic's like the beautiful storytelling, the music, all that stuff. BioWare magic to the developers is the terrible development schedule, and he went over that. And the fact that they rehired him tells me that maybe they're doing some restructuring. Maybe they aren't going to do crunch anymore, because when you like the fact like Mass Effect 2 is so good, and they somehow pulled that game off. And they did literally 90% of the development in the last few months. It blows my mind. It really blows my mind. So it's good that the person that exposed that to the public is now back at BioWare, which is great. It really is great. I hope we see... like it's good news for Mass Effect, because the lead writer from the Guardians of the Galaxy game is on the next Mass Effect game. So all in all, Dragon Age might be a bit in a weird state with changing developers, but Mass Effect 4... is, it's going to be in good hands. And the thing is about Mass Effect 4, it's kind of ages away, right? I wish I had more news to top. In fact, I have videos coming out about Mass Effect 4 this year, but Mass Effect 4 is in good hands. We've seen Mass Effect go through a weird cycle. Mass Effect... think about it like this, Logan. Mass Effect 2 came out in 2010. Mass Effect 3 got its trailer in 2010. Most people don't realize that.
Yeah, development cycles for games have gone absolutely psychotic. It takes so long to make a massive tentpole game. Like back in the day, I know it makes us sound like old boomers, but it used to be like every couple years or every 3, maybe 5 years, you'd get a big hit franchise from these studios. Now it's taking forever. Look at Star Wars Eclipse when that was announced. That's not expected till 2028, assuming nothing else happens to it. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the development cycle is just getting longer and longer each time for games, but like just looking back at Mass Effect 3, the fact that they announced the third game with a trailer the year the second game came out blows my mind. But hey, they got the game out. It's in good hands, basically. And Mass Effect, the C team, the team that made the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, which is great. I talk about Mass Effect 3 multiplayer all the time. That development studio worked on Mass Effect Andromeda, and they didn't know what to make for years. I even have documents on what was meant to be in that game, by the way. The game, what we were originally going to get, is nothing like Mass Effect Andromeda. And Mass Effect Andromeda was essentially made in 18 months. That IP's been all over the place. I remember it was on my birthday in 2000, I think it was 2017. They announced that Mass Effect was going into hiatus as an IP. Do you know how much that destroyed my birthday? I had a birthday cake, and I was scrolling Twitter, and I literally saw Mass Effect going into hiatus as an IP. I was bloody devastated. Birthday ruined. And, eventually we got teasers. The Mass Effect, remaster came out, and they bloody nailed Mass Effect Legendary Edition. That's how you do a remaster trilogy. And, we got the trailers and the teaser for the new one. It's in early pre-production. Give it a while, I just think it's not going to be as far away as people think it will be. I've seen people write 2030 or something. No, it's not that far away, trust me. But yeah, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, it seems like the situation's going to be handled. That's all. Anyway, move on. Logan, I know you'll probably want to talk about this one. So Diablo 4, like we were saying, it's going to be a massive game. And they announced a brand new bundle coming out this June, right? So you'd think, right, what do you have to do with a Diablo console? You just have to slap some pentagrams on it, right? That's all you have to do for a Diablo console. Slap some red or white pentagrams on it, you're good to go. And the bundle is just a basic bundle. It's not custom. Now, Logan, I know that stuff bothers you.
Yeah, it's so goofy to me. Like when you have like, I know they're not technically first party yet. They will be most likely, but when you have a tentpole franchise, you're making a special edition console. You should make it look like the actual IP, like to make it special. Like, you know, that would, I know it'd be hard to have a Forza, console that looks like a car or something. It'd be really cool, but I understand that's kind of difficult. But like seriously, like you have a Starfield coming out. You should have a Starfield themed console. Like, make it kind of NASA, like with the white colored and then maybe some grays or some reds and blues, mixed in, maybe a little yellow for a patch. Or, you have a desert themed RPG, so you kind of have a sandy colored console with some stuff. Or like they did with the Gears games, like those consoles were awesome. The Gears consoles, like Gears 3, 360, Gears 4, Xbox One S, and then the Gears 5, Xbox One X, like those were awesome. Like, why can't they just do more like that?
I honestly don't know, because if you look at the 360, right, any version of the 360, there's all these different grooves and vents and lines and all that stuff, which makes doing customs a bit more difficult. But we got them all the time. But if you look at the Xbox Series X and S, they are just like flat edges, right? There's so much surface area on them. They could make the best custom consoles. Like look at the Gears of War Xbox One X. And like that is a great looking console. I think they did one for the series. Yeah, the One S as well. The naming convention's going all over the place. But the custom Gears console looked great. It had like the laser etching and all that stuff, and it was easy because like it's a rectangle, right? But the Xbox Series X and Series S, they just have to do the same thing. Again, with Diablo, put some bloody pentagrams on it. It can't be that difficult. And they have the best shape of a console to make custom versions because there's so much surface area. Just why not? Like my ideal situation is that they put consoles in a design lab because why not? Yes.
Oh man, you'd make bank with that as
Yeah.
a company.
Like, there's a lot of people that buy custom stuff just because they want something custom to be on the shelf. Like, people buy lots of controllers. That doesn't mean they use them all. People put them on the shelf. They could do that with consoles as well. I think when it comes to big games, they should do more. Thankfully, you mentioned Starfield. I've got it up now. There's a Starfield controller potentially leaks. Now, if you're gonna do a game like Starfield, and Starfield is now a first-party title, and you're going to do a controller, surely, Microsoft, you're going to do a console as well, because, like, the money's there. Like, like people, like, I would be interested in a Starfield Series X. Day one, I'd be interested in that, because it's sci-fi. They could do some really cool things with it. Put some LEDs in there. Why not? And yeah, it just seems like that's a game they should really do that for. It's a weird missed opportunity if they don't. Like, I think the only custom Series X out right now that you can buy is the Halo console. And it's a good looking console. If you've got a blacklight, you can actually see like some logos and stuff on it. Really cool console, but they need to do more. And I don't understand why not. Like the PlayStation 4, there was custom consoles all the time. Even the base Xbox One was getting custom consoles now and then. Like, I can't imagine. Like, I would have loved a Persona 5 themed Xbox Series X, with all the reds and stuff. Like, I just think that would make sense. But anyway, they need to do more. It just irked me the wrong way when I saw that because, like, why could you not put pentagrams on it? Like, they could have essentially just been, vinyls. Anyway, we'll move on.
They could totally, like, just one last quibble about it. Like they could totally like make a go back and make a Series S or Series X for Hi-Fi Rush if they wanted to. And imagine how colorful and crazy they could go with something like that. Just like they have all these options now. Why not use them?
Yeah, it's strange because it's such an easy moneymaker. like like people say Microsoft's money hungry, yet they're not doing the things that would bring in money like that. Like Sony, they're probably going to come out with tons of custom PlayStations this generation. Although they have the fins on the side which you can take off, so they'll probably just do a bunch of them. But yeah, Microsoft really needs to get on that because it's just a missed opportunity. I want to talk about Twitter and mainly one particular tweet. So a few days ago, I posted about Final Fantasy VII and how it should be on multiple platforms because it's a third-party game made by Square Enix and it's a household name. Like Final Fantasy VII, doesn't matter which country you grew up in, you heard about Final Fantasy VII, and the fact that the remake isn't on Xbox and it's a third-party game, I was like, it should be on everything, right? And the amount of people that really made angry was kind of incredible because everyone kept on bringing up the Activision thing, and mainly Bethesda, actually. And, how... This is the thing, right? Logan, maybe I'm batshit crazy for this, and I need to say that, like, how is owning your own studios and having those games exclusive worse than paying for third-party exclusivity? Because that was the reaction I got.
It's not. It's spoiled brat entitlement syndrome that we talked about last time. It's ridiculous. It's like if I own it, I can do with it what I will. Like if I want to make it multi-platform, yeah, hey everybody, come on down, let's all play this. Or if I want to go, you know what, I spent a lot of money on this. This is particularly special to me. I think I just want to hold on to it and keep it. Like you can do that. It's different than going like this. There's this new thing coming out, and like you pay a whole bunch of money to say, you know what, I want a little bit of it, but just make sure that guy doesn't get it. Just like I don't, just forget that guy. Just I'm paying to keep it away from him. Like, how just downright scuzzy that feels. Like I get it, it's legal, it's business. Well, turns out maybe some lawmakers aren't particularly fond of that now. So, careful what you wish for in raising too much noise about things because now they're getting looked at about that.
Yeah, I mean, that one particular tweet just set people off. And what I find funny is that, like, a lot of the people that were replying to that post were Americans wanting to gatekeep Japanese games off an American console. Like, that will never stop being funny to me because it doesn't make sense. like I've even had replies by, pretty big, I should say PlayStation/Nintendo centric, content creators, and they almost act offended the second I just merely suggest more JRPGs come to Xbox. And it's like, where does it end? Like, if JRPGs didn't sell on Xbox, why do we still get Yakuza games? Like, the last Yakuza game didn't launch in Game Pass. The one before that didn't launch in Game Pass. And Sega has, like, a bunch of other Yakuza games that are still going to come to Game Pass. So it makes no sense. And, like, Square Enix, by the way, this is also another hate on Square Enix topic, which, fun times ahead. Square Enix, they are absolutely useless. There was a time when you would see their logo on a game case and know, wow, I'm going to get a really good game here. You had a solid, like, maybe like 60, 80, 100 plus hour RPG experience, something really great. And they just get worse and worse every generation. And it's amazing. And, like, you see all these other companies, like, they make dumb decisions, they learn. They make another dumb decision, and then they learn. Like, look at EA. EA, we've hated on for years. Gamers in general have hated on EA for years. And look at them now. They are making single-player games. They are saying they aren't going to put microtransactions in these single-player games. Like EA, they learned. Ubisoft, hopefully they will learn soon because they keep making dumb decisions. But, like, Square Enix is the Ubisoft of Japan. Like, the NFT game blows my mind. And if people don't know, There's an NFT game coming out where there's basically thousands of different NFT characters, and only 3 people get to experience the end mission. Like, that's mind-blowing. Like, how is that a thing? And I love the fact that within 5 minutes, modders are going to have that on YouTube for everyone to watch. And I'm going to watch it out of spite, just because of Square Enix. Like, Logan, think about it like this. Like, we used to get really good games from them all the time. People don't know if, Kingdom Hearts 4 is going to be multi-platform. Yet they wondering why they aren't making money like they used to. And they're limiting the amount of fans that can buy the games. And then they make this game which has only 3 people that can play the ending, if they have the wallet big enough.
Yeah, it's just the Square way at this point. It makes absolutely zero sense. They're just bent on going a certain way no matter what happens, and they're, I guess kudos to them for being committed to an idea, but I just don't understand what they're doing anymore. And frankly, I wonder what their future holds.
Yeah, and like look like this. We got Octopath Traveler as a random shadow drop announcement a few years ago on Xbox. Nobody expected that, and it was going to be like a Game Pass launch, but yet we don't get the sequel. Like, that makes no sense. The Pixel remasters, which were originally on mobile, get announced for Steam. Really cool. They get announced for PlayStation and Switch. Okay, cool. Not Xbox. Like, the classic games would obviously sell. And, every time I say these games should come to Xbox, you get these arseholes. No swearing on the channel usually, but I'm just going there. You get these arseholes, right, that say Japanese games don't sell on Xbox. Then why did they put the odd cherry-picked game out there, right? We got Crisis Core, the remake, right? A game I will say every single time I talk about is amazing. Absolutely incredible game. Yet we don't get the game that follows that. They put the Diofield Chronicles on Xbox, okay? They put Strangers of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin on Xbox, okay? But not those other games. Logan, what do you think would be more of an expensive port? The Crisis Core remake or Pixel remasters?
I would say Crisis Core 100%.
Yeah, and the things they did in that game, they remade cutscenes. They used AI upscaling for. There's an AI cutscene, AI upscaled cutscene at the beginning of the game that blew me away because I thought that was a brand new made cutscene. Turns out it was in the original PSP game, but AI upscaling did a bunch of good stuff on that game. And Star Ocean. I got it for Christmas. I start playing it. I start enjoying it. I really need to get back to it. But they didn't even advertise it at all. How did they launch a new game in a long-running series, a series that they should want to make even bigger? They put it on Xbox. They don't market the bloody thing. Blows my mind. How do they not market their own games? And then they say the fan base of Final Fantasy VII, or I should say Final Fantasy, is getting smaller every single time we put one out. Well, stop bloody putting them on one console. Kingdom Hearts, they put the first Kingdom Hearts game, and to this day it still blows my mind. The first Kingdom Hearts game in a series, which is known to be kind of complicated when it comes to the plot. We get the third game in the series, and then 2 years later, we get the remasters. I bought both, but it's the principle of it. We got them in the wrong order. People expected to jump into 3 without previously on Kingdom Hearts section that lasted maybe half an hour. It's just they do these dumb decisions constantly, and then they wonder why they aren't making the money back. They sell off their arguably best studios for $300 million, including every single intellectual property. And that blows my mind. How was the Tomb Raider IP alone not worth $300 million? It makes no sense. Thankfully, those studios are no longer with Square Enix, which is very good news because I can't stand Square Enix. But they just make these continuous dumb decisions, and then they say recently that they aren't going to change any of their business choices. Amazing. It's beautiful, kind of They keep getting themselves into crap. They keep doing crap and wondering why things are happening. That's the definition of insanity. They're doing the same thing over and over and over again and wondering why things aren't changing. Amazing. And whenever a game does come to Xbox now, I see two different things. Should I buy the game to hope that we get more games in the future? And I don't want to buy the game because I don't want to support a developer that doesn't put more games on the console. And both kind of make sense. But, again, we got Crisis Core, a prequel. We aren't getting the remake for 7. And Logan, we'll put the Sony being investigated topic in now rather than later because it just makes sense. Sony being investigated for these things makes sense because they don't own, Square Enix. Making deals is one thing, but they actively pay to keep games not off Xbox, not off just the platform in general, but off Game Pass. And, if they own Square Enix, we'd all understand. It's oh, these games are exclusive. We understand it, but, they are paying for all these games. In Japan, a lot of games, they just don't go to Xbox. And granted, people can say, oh, there's a handful of consoles over there. Doesn't matter. It's principle. They pay to keep games off the platform, and now the US are investigating into this situation. So Logan, you've obviously paid more attention to this whole investigation stuff than me. What's the deal?
You know the meme that mess around and you find out it's basically that. Sony was number one staunch critic of the ABK deal. They were, whining and dining and just crying and flying all over the globe, just raising a royal fit about this thing and trying to, yell and scream to whoever would listen to them about just how awful this was and how it was going to ruin everything, and it's just not fair, it's just not right, it's horrible, no good, very bad, just sad day. It was ridiculous. And so, they got a lot of attention. And some of the regulators, took up their stances more than others. FTC, for example, was very keen on their ideas. And because they needed an avenue to pursue to go against big tech. And so they're well, Sony gives us technically an avenue to go through that. So we'll take their arguments. And then CMA was kind of leaning that way until, lo and behold, oh, our math was wrong. How embarrassing. Let's fix that. And so now it's reduced down to just cloud. And then the EU was this is ridiculous. Your arguments hold no water. And they didn't even regard console, just like Brazil didn't. And Japan passed it, no worries at all. Saudi Arabia, other places. So basically now, Microsoft was okay, you guys have been a royal pain and a thorn in our side. How about we turn some of that attention you wanted over on you? And so basically, people that represent Washington and areas with Microsoft ties and constituents and other things have been made aware through lobbying and news and other things that, look, you should actually be looking at this. And they have a 98 or 96%, share of the high-end console market or whatever. And it's and we're working on a trade deal with with this region. Shouldn't that fall under, things dealing with the fair agreement between our countries? This is affecting trade. If our American company was promised to be able to have, free trade and open opportunity to trade and pursue business deals in your country, yet they're getting hosed because of some untoward practices going on, then that's not fair and right, and you guys need to look at that and do your job. And so now it's turned over to Sony, and the Japanese FTC is looking at it. Congress in the U.S. has brought it to attention and has sent letters and voiced that they want action done. So basically, all their lobbying has come back to bite them. This is one of those things where they really should have just shut up and just sat there and go, you know what? We're not thrilled with this deal, but we'll let it go. We'll go for the next battle, next win. By throwing such a fit about this one, it could potentially completely change how they do their business, period. Not just with subscriptions, but everything. They're not allowed to do these deals anymore. And yes, the idea of them having 98% of a market is crazy, but because, Nintendo exists. But this number is made by the regulators and Sony themselves for their own argument. So, in that world and through that, glasses lens, it's fair game to say, all right, well, you want to use these numbers? Fine. I'll use these numbers against you. So, congratulations, you played yourself. And it's just really funny to see.
Yeah, I mean, like I think it was like inevitable. Like they were poking the dragon a bit too hard, and then this happened. And like I'll never understand like why people are in favor of a third party exclusivity over first party exclusivity. Like if Sony had bought these studios and like their games were theirs, people would understand. But like Sony actively paid to keep games off the platform. Like would Xbox be any bigger in Japan if these games were still published and like launched over there on the console? Arguably, you could say yes, because again, if you live in Japan and most of the games that are popular over there, Japanese RPGs or things like Genshin Impact, right? Genshin Impact is huge over there. That's not available on Xbox anywhere. Like that's a thing, and like these things should be looked into because I think people are getting sick of it. Like we've had to deal with the whole Activision talk, which we'll be talking about in a bit, for like a year now, and like wondering what's going to happen, which games are exclusive and that. But like, if a Japanese game is announced, people just expect it to just be on on PlayStation and on like Switch, and like we hear about all these games that could have came to Game Pass, like Resident Evil 8. But no, Sony paid to keep that game off Game Pass. Apparently, Sony has a deal in place to keep certain Call of Duty games off Game Pass for years. So when the whole deal goes through, which we'll be talking about in a bit, like it doesn't necessarily mean like day one, that day we have like 20 Call of Duty games in the service, because there's a contract in place where that can't happen, which is kind of stupid if you think about it. Like, and I think as time goes on, these things need to change. Like, why is it the case where we have to question constantly which games Microsoft, having multi-platform or exclusive, which they own, yet these games made in Japan are just de facto known as exclusives on PlayStation? That's not fair, and you never hear people question this. You always see these media outlets questioning Xbox, like, is Starfield going to be on PlayStation? But they'll never mention, like, the Pixel remasters, right? A third-party game. They'll never mention Final Fantasy VII Remake or other games, the Neo 1 and 2. Those don't get mentioned. And it's silly, right? And, like, I saw someone in chat before, and thankfully on this show, we don't get many PlayStation fanboys in the chat. It's now and then. I saw before someone said, like, Xbox dudes always complain, yet don't talk about the games. And that is not true. If I scroll down my Twitter feed, like, it's filled with people wanting these games on the platform. And whenever Square Enix posts about, like, a trailer or some art, if you scroll down below, it's Xbox guys posting, the Xbox-centric, game case art. It's because they want the games on their platform, right? Yes, people can play it on the PlayStation or PC or Switch, but like it's not exactly fair, is it, that the Pixel remasters, for example, is going to be on literally everything except Xbox. These classic games, which were originally Nintendo exclusives, by the way, which are now going to be on multi-platform, everything except Xbox. It's stupid. And the fact that people will defend it is even more stupid. Silly. But, hopefully Microsoft will work with developers in Japan, and maybe we could see more Lost Odyssey style games. Basically, I want my Lost Odyssey 2. I think a lot of people would be interested in a Lost Odyssey 2 anyway. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to say on the topic before we move on?
Oh, just I'm absolutely day one for Lost Odyssey 2 or Blue Dragon 2 or, remasters, remakes, or just some games made like that. Just give us some original Japanese content again. And, hopefully that rumored, from Xbox era, Skies of Arcadia remaster. Hopefully that's not another one that skips Xbox. Hopefully that comes. And, like, other stuff like that. Just it there's a double standard when it comes to Xbox and PlayStation about how they can do things and operate, and they get passes from certain outlets and they don't from others, and it's frustrating. And just, always voice your concerns. Be respectful, but voice your concerns and, bring it to attention. Just like this is different topic, but like they finally addressed the memory thing, like for Xbox, where there's a new external hard drive for, next gen games. It's still expensive, but it's a little bit less expensive, so it's a step in the right direction. And people, let them know about it. Like, hey, we need this kind of thing. And they responded. So just always raise your concerns. Be kind about it, but let them know what's expected.
Yeah, just people need to be respectful. Before we get into the whole like storage card topic, we're about an hour into the show. If people enjoy it, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. Again, I have a video coming tomorrow. Finally. But yeah, if you're enjoying the show, if you want to support the channel, super chats are live and all that stuff. Anyway, so Microsoft storage cards. We've had basically a few available for a while now. There's been the 1 terabyte card. There's a 500 and I think it's 516 gigabytes. There's a 2 terabyte card, and I think there may be a 4 terabyte. I'm not entirely sure. I know that one would cost an arm and a leg, literally. But basically, the cards have been kind of pricey for a while compared to other SSDs. Like, I put it like this: the Xbox Series S in the UK costs. You can get one for about £230. The card, the 1 terabyte storage card, is average about £210. Like, Logan, there's a £20 difference between a storage card and a console.
Yeah, that's outrageous. Like, just point blank, that is ridiculous price gouging.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I think their solution of plugging it into the back, like a little cartridge, cool, right? You don't have to get a screwdriver and take your console apart, all that stuff. But like the price is a bit much. Like I remember joking, I think it was with Xbox 448 before the consoles came out. Like I had this thought where I'm gonna have this like little stack of storage cards and a little like label maker, keeping track of what games are on what. And it's like it's 2023. I still haven't bought a card because those cards just cost too much. And Seagate have basically had the license to make them exclusively for the past 3 years. And now it leaked a few days. I think it was in Best Buy in the US. Western Digital are coming out with a 1 terabyte card. It's a little bit cheaper. So in the UK, it's going to be £184, I believe. Which, granted, that is a lot more favourable than 210 or 220, which I've seen in some places. Now, the good news is more companies can now start making them, which means the price of them will go down because more people will start buying them. There'll be more demand. Again, it's not Seagate. Seagate have had 100% control of that price for 3 years now. And Western Digital, I use a lot of Western Digital products. I will probably get the Western Digital one at some point soon. Because again, I've been using Western Digital storage for about 14, 15 years. So I'm probably going to get it. And we're probably going to see different sizes soon. Microsoft has no comment on that card just yet, so I'm thinking it's probably going to be in maybe one of the Xbox showcases, because Starfield is going to be a bloody big game. Like, that's going to be well over 100 gigabytes. So maybe people will need a card specifically for Starfield. I was thinking about getting a card, by the way, for just Call of Duty and Flight Sim. I'm not even kidding. Flight Simulator is over 100 gigabytes, and then it's like 25 gigabytes per like pack of textures you want, like for different countries. It's like it's insane. It's why I don't always play the game, but it's good news. it still needs to be cheaper. PlayStation, they may have went with the whole, you take your console apart with a screwdriver and, do an operation on it approach, but the storage is cheaper. And I see a lot of people saying they don't want to get a storage card until it gets down to £100. Honestly, I can understand why, especially with everything going up at the minute. The prices of everything has gone up. Hell, I saw butter yesterday for £7. Like, so when it comes to buying a piece of storage for £200, people really don't want that. Logan, what's your thought on this? Because we've been talking about the storage solution for years now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, I understand, it's advanced tech, and they have to use certain hardware and software to make it work, and thus it's more expensive, and it's newer, so thus it's always more expensive when it first comes out. But there's got to be a middle road somewhere to where they can make a more affordable option, or make it to where maybe you can update some of the older storage options to hold these games and run them. Because, like, I have one of the Seagate cards personally. I bought it because I knew I'd need it, and then I've got external hard drive, 4 terabyte or whatever. I think maybe it's 2. And then I've bought several of those over time, and you can get a massive, like, a bunch of terabytes external hard drive for not that much that'll work on your Series X. It just won't work with the next gen games to run them natively, and it just surely they can maybe at some point find a way to make it where those can actually run the games as well, because it's I don't like to criticize Xbox much. Like, I love Xbox, but there's got to be something they can do with this, because it doesn't seem affordable or fair to make it to where all these games take 100 gigabytes or 75 or 45, and then there's only so much room on it, and then to upgrade your memory, you either have to just constantly uninstall and reinstall stuff, or pay practically the price of a next-gen console just to minimally upgrade your system's memory. That doesn't seem grounded in good reality to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, I put it like this. I'm looking at storage right now on Amazon, and a 4 terabyte external hard drive made by Western Digital costs £84, right? Now, honestly, I think that's a really good price for 4 terabytes of external storage. Now, if you want an SSD, it is $158.99 for a 2 terabyte external SSD. Bear in mind, these won't work to play games off. And, the fact that people are going to be paying more for that for half the storage, I think that's the big issue. Like, 1 terabyte these days doesn't seem like a lot, because a lot of games are over 100 gigabytes, and then you have the patches, and then the expansions and all that stuff. And it's like, again, Flight Sim. I absolutely loved what I played of Flight Sim, but it's well over 100 gigabytes. Like, again, Starfield is going to be huge. Ghostwire Tokyo, thankfully, isn't a big download. It's about 25 gigabytes, which I think that's pretty cool for that style of game. But yeah, unfortunately, just as time goes on, we are using so much storage for games. Like, I remember getting my Xbox 360 Elite with the 100 terabyte hard drive and thinking, wow, I've got infinite storage. I'll never run out of storage. And I miss those days because it was just so good. And plus, that was before you had to even install games, because you just played them off the disc. But now Blu-ray drives need to be faster, and it's a big, stupid kettle of fish. But it's good to see that we are going to start seeing more cards soon. We probably will see cheaper options and all that stuff. As time goes on, the storage will just get cheaper. Just people need to have demand for it. That's all. And, speaking of hardware, a patent leaked last week for a Xbox controller with a screen on it. Now, I start seeing people lose their minds, because for years I've seen people now say, we don't want gimmicks on the Xbox controller. And even I've said that. And it turns out, after people being dramatic about it, I won't mention certain accounts, but people using it as ammo to attack people, like Xbox is going to be making this screened controller. It turns out, after all that drama, it's Turtle Beach. They are making a Xbox controller with a screen on it that will let you change things like profiles and loadouts in video games. So yeah, I think maybe people need to calm down and stop being dramatic about things and wait till the official. And plus, there's already an Xbox controller out with a screen on it. It's made by Asus. It's got a little screen on the top of the controller which basically tells you what game you're playing. And that's it, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, Logan, what do you think of this? So Turtle Beach making a controller with a screen on it.
It sounds fun to me. I personally won't get it, but I'm all for more options for folks. And, diversity is the, spice of life. And just having these different options for people to use. Like if they want a custom loadout with HUD basically view on a screen on your controller, cool. Or if you want something with paddles, great. Or if you want just a generic bare bones plug in and play controller, awesome. Just like have stuff for different budgets and different people. And yeah, like people kind of just are hair triggered about things. Like anytime anything leaks or is rumored to be happening or said to be purportedly in development or whatever, like the Quantum Break thing, for example, like people were losing their minds and using it for console war fodder, which is dumb to begin with, but saying like, oh, it's leaving Game Pass, see, like they can't even keep first party, or what does this mean? What are they doing? This, and see, it was mid. I told you they won't even keep it on Game Pass, and just all kinds of garbage. And it's as simple as Aaron Greenberg responded. Remedy themselves came out and said, look, there's a licensing hubbub that we're fixing, and it will be back shortly. So, just like Alan Wake was originally delisted and then brought back to Xbox because of some music and licensing stuff. It happens. Good news is they clearly care about it, so they're fixing it and bringing it back. So, just settle down a little bit whenever something is teased or whatever. Like, it might not be as it appears.
Yeah, you know what? We'll just jump straight into the Quantum Break thing now that you mentioned that, because like every month or every other month we get a list of games of leaving Game Pass. Thankfully, Game Pass actually tells us what's leaving, unlike Netflix. That's one of my biggest issues with Netflix, is that they do not tell you like what's leaving soon, or at least not the easiest way. You have to click on the film and then it'll say up the top sometimes. But with Game Pass we do. And Game Pass was listed there. And people start freaking out. Cats and dogs start living together. Absolute pandemonium on Twitter. People were making videos about it. Console wars were going all over the place. And it's like, just because this game was getting delisted. And like, I think I've had about 30 people ask me on Twitter, like, why is this happening? And I've had the same answer for everyone. It's probably licensing. And what do you know? The next day, or 2 days later, by the way, Microsoft shouldn't have waited 3 days to answer. They said, oh, it's a license issue. Now, fortunately, from the past, this has happened before. Like you said, Alan Wake got delisted. I think it was October 2019. Alan Wake, the Xbox 360 version, got delisted. This was before the remaster. It got delisted for a particular song. Alan Wake has, I think it's 12 licensed 12 pieces of licensed music by different various bands. And it got delisted because of one song. And then a month later, I think it was actually about 3 weeks, it came back to Xbox, right? And the original game is still up. You can still download it and play it. You can buy it. And you can also buy the remaster. So they eventually fixed that. So I wouldn't worry. Quantum Break is a game they clearly care about. They will fix it. Remedy has been known to fix license issues, especially like they fixed it with a 360 game. That would have been a lot harder because of all the code and stuff. Like, do they even have Xbox 360 dev kits still? Like, it's a weird issue, but they sorted it. They're going to sort this out. And, it just goes to show people are just willing to use anything for console war fodder. Like, oh, these games don't leave Game Pass. Well, it wouldn't be if it wasn't for license issues. My biggest issue is with these companies that are living in the past, which have these timed licenses on content. Like, Logan, you said you wanted to talk about this before the show, but like 99% of the main reason we don't have games like Singularity or the Transformers games on Xbox is because of licenses. And whether it be a particular song in a video game, I read somewhere that Lost Odyssey isn't in Game Pass because of one song. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but if it is true, it's stupid. Like, licenses are the biggest hindrance of video games. Licensed games are hit by it a lot. Wolverine Origins, Logan. You obviously would like to play that if it came to Xbox, but we can't because of licenses. Like, it's a stupid issue, right?
Yeah, I hate it. I get why licenses happen, royalty payments, all that. I get it. You have to, dot your I's and cross your T's legally, paperwork. Everybody gets their money, so everybody's happy. I get it, but there's got to be a smarter way to do this. Like, you don't see films and TV shows get delisted all the time because of songs or like cameo appearances or like marketing bits or just like there's a Coke product placement or something. It's like, oh, that deal's expired, we gotta yank the game now, sorry. You don't see that for like shows and films and stuff, so surely there is a better way to handle that. And like, you know, going forward, it seems like Hi-Fi Rush was privy and smart about that idea, to where they also made it to where they had licensed music and a studio a local band they partnered with to make unlicensed versions for the game that you could use instead of the licensed soundtrack, where maybe preemptively that makes it where that game's never a risk of being delisted. Like, maybe they have to do more of that, or maybe they can just work out better deals. But it seems ridiculous to me that a cool game like X-Men, Wolverine Origins, or the Transformer games, or like the old James Bond games, or Jason Bourne, or like even some of the Star Wars games that haven't made the BC cut. Just a few of them. But it seems crazy that big franchises from big licenses just get punted into the sun, basically, once the next generation passes, just because of some fine print stuff and royalties and licenses that are an outdated concept for the modern era. Like, surely they can figure something out.
Yeah, I mean, we just have the first super chat of the night by Nick W 499. Thank you very much. He said, "When movies lose their licenses, they become public domain." I didn't know that. I have seen things about public domain stuff recently, about like the Winnie the Pooh thing, and how we have a Winnie the Pooh horror film. Although apparently that's terrible. But I didn't know that. Thank you very much for the 499 super chat.
That's good to know.
Yeah, like, I think when it comes to like movie, like you do mention that, like, why do they not like we don't see movies leave like Disney Plus or Amazon Prime because of the whole licensing thing, and like maybe they need to work on the perpetual things, or I don't know how the licensing would work, but like you said, Hi-Fi Rush has 2 soundtracks. Like, whenever I've posted clips on Twitter, it's been the streamer, the streamer friendly version with like the original soundtrack, and that's because it's safe. I can't get DMCA'd because of their music. And I think Atomic Heart also has that as well, where they have 2 soundtracks. Thankfully, a lot of their music is in-house, made by Mick Gordon. Great music, by the way. I highly recommend people listen to Atomic Heart soundtrack. But yeah, it's just an issue with Quantum Break and other games. Again, like, when Microsoft gets this Activision deal done, there's been rumored that we would see some games backwards compatible. Will we see the Transformers games? That's the big question. Now,
I would put that as very unlikely, but hopefully Singularity or something. But I would love it to happen, though.
yeah, I mean, the only reason I have hope for the Transformers games is because not many companies are working with the Transformers game license. I think there's currently one Transformers game in development. There's been a bunch being cancelled, so like I can't imagine it being too expensive for Microsoft to relicense those Transformers games, because people always tell me like they want to play those games again. They want to buy them on Xbox. Hell, they could pop out 4K 60 remasters, just put out the PC version, you know? And hell, I have the 360 versions right here, still wrapped, ready to go. I will play them on my 360, but like there's so many games we will miss out on due to like time. Like I put it like this: Deadpool released on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. We got a remaster in, I think it was 2016. It was available on the market for like 6 months. Like, that is crazy. Like, they put so much money and effort into a remaster, and then it was just on sale for 6 months. Like, that is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Thankfully, I've got a physical copy. But like it's getting worse and worse as time goes on. It's like, look at Spider-Man on PlayStation, right? We can't play Spider-Man games, older ones on Xbox or any other platform, because of the Spider-Man game license. So maybe one day Sony loses that license. Like, that's an issue. I don't want people to lose games due to time. It's stupid. But yeah, Quantum Break, thankfully they're getting it fixed. And in the past week, I've seen people bring up Konami. If you don't know, the Metal Gear Solid games have been delisted since, I think it was since 2021, November 2021, due to historical footage, because Metal Gear Solid 3 features footage from World War II in Vietnam. I think it might have been just World War II. And due to that historical footage, they had to pull it from everything: Xbox, PlayStation, the PlayStation Vita, PC, and the 3DS, because Metal Gear Solid 3DS was a thing. And they said, we're going to get on it, we're going to fix it. Well, we've heard nothing for over a year and a half now, or whatever. And now there's rumors that it's going to come back as a new collection. We're probably going to hear about it during the summer showcase, where, and I've heard rumors, by the way, that we are going to get the first game on Xbox, which we've never had before. So that's why that hasn't come back. They basically going to charge people for it. Now, I'm actually okay with that, because like I can't imagine them selling many copies a week of that Metal Gear Solid collection, especially that the fact it was only limited to essentially people still on PlayStation 3, people on Xbox platforms, and 3DS. So, Logan, what's your thought on that? Because like the Metal Gear Solid thing, it's probably happening soon this year.
Yeah, I'm down for a new collection of Metal Gear games. It would be amazing if they could include 4. I mean, I've always wanted to play that on Xbox, but that one's kind of in limbo. But if they could port a bunch of new ones, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I port beg Metal Gear Solid 4 on Twitter, maybe on a weekly basis, because I loved it. It's the reason I have a PlayStation 3. It's essentially a PlayStation 3 box. Unfortunately, my PlayStation 3 Slim sounds like it's about to take off anytime I turn it on. And Metal Gear Solid 4 is great. It's basically a long cutscene with little bits of gameplay. But that's kind of what Metal Gear Solid is in a way. And like, I would love Xbox players to be able to play that. I mean, hell, you can play it on PC, technically, if you know what I mean. But like, outside of that, it's not available. And the fact that like that's stranded on a PlayStation 3 and the only way you can play it is if you have a PlayStation 3, it's stupid. I don't even know if you can play it on the cloud anymore. I think they removed it. Like, I put it like this: the end cutscene in that game was so long. I remember sitting back and drinking a few pints. Like that, it was that long. The cutscenes are ridiculous, but they're great. But yeah, things are getting sorted, and I hope things will change. The license issue is just the stupidest issue. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to say before we move on?
No, just that, fingers crossed. I hope the ABK deal does get finalized soon and we get it done, and that once it's, hopefully done, it would be amazing if we could get one big batch of ABK related titles like Singularity, or, Return to Castle Wolfenstein or Quake 4, like some of these games that had multi-studio, multi-publisher ties that were just caught in limbo. Bring those back. Older Crash games, Spyro, Activision. I mean, Skylanders, Crash Bandicoot, and Guitar Hero, whatever. Just like there is a desire for them, and you could pump Game Pass so full of titles like that just with the snap of your fingers if you could make those BC.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll hear something about that soon. Before we end the topic, so Batman Arkham Origins, as people know, it's not available to purchase digitally on Xbox. You have to own the disc for the backwards compatibility to work. That's not listed because of one song. Like, that's appalling. I love that game. And, like, people always ask me, like, I still get comments on YouTube videos to this day off a video I put out early last year, like, how can I play Batman Arkham Origins? It's like, you have to own the disc. So if you have a 1S that's, digital or a Series S, you are out of luck because you need the disc. And that's all because of one bloody song. Such a shame. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, so Star Wars Jedi Survivor previews have been out over the past 24 hours. People are raving about them. People are saying everything that people want about the game. And they're all great previews. Now, I keep away from footage if I'm not involved in the previews because I like to be surprised. But basically, this game looks like they've taken what was, in my opinion, Game of the Year 2019, and they've elevated it. So I'll list a bunch of features that the game's going to have. So obviously, it's going to have deeper story and all that stuff. It's even going to have side quests, something which the first game did not have. It's going to feature 7 planets. Now, the first game, I believe, had 5. 2 of the areas were pretty small, and the snow planet, which was the shortest, you didn't really need to go there outside of, like, one time when you got your lightsaber crystals. But yeah, these are going to be 7 planets. There's going to be bigger areas. Coruscant is coming, finally. I've been wanting Coruscant in a new AAA game for years. It has deeper customization. Now, at first, when I saw this, I thought it just meant lightsaber and clothes. But no, you can change facial hair, hairstyles, all that stuff. So while you are still playing as Cal Kestis, you can make him look pretty much how you want. And this game actually has cool clothes. We're not limited to ponchos this time. Logan, remember how we just had like 12 ponchos to choose from?
Oh yeah, you got your tie-dye poncho, you got your tan poncho, your black poncho, your red poncho, your white poncho. You got a poncho for all occasions.
Yeah, like I just wanted a cool leather jacket or something. But this game has a lot of different cool outfits, even more so if you get the digital deluxe version. There's also a deeper skill tree. So you're even going to learn more force powers in this game. So my biggest issue with games is that if you have this really cool game and you get all these powers, by the end of the game, the sequel comes out and they remove all those powers. I cannot stand that. I get why they do it, but I just like... I play this when Deus Ex Mankind Divided came out. They came up with an elaborate scenario as to where all of your powers were missing. I hated that. I don't like it when games do that. But yeah, it's going to have deeper skill tree. It has 3 specific skill trees in this game, which is really cool. You have a gadget in this game as a grappling hook, which is really cool. If you've seen the trailers, the Metroidvania elements is going to be really bigger. There's going to be 5 lightsaber combat styles. So in the first game, you could basically fight 2 different ways. Dual lightsaber or single lightsaber. Now, you couldn't use dual lightsabers. How you could, like, let's say Ahsoka Tano uses them. You couldn't use them that way. It was just during one special move, but the double-bladed lightsaber was a different way. But yeah, there's 5 in this game. You can even use pistols in combination with lightsabers, which is really cool in my opinion. There's the hilted guard lightsaber, Kylo Ren's lightsaber. That's going to be in this as well, which is really cool. Like I said, there's going to be side quests. There's air and land mounts because the levels are that big now. We need faster ways to traverse. The game features fast travel now. Now, I read the interview, And apparently, like, they knew that was the biggest concern with the first game, where people were constantly asking for fast travel. And they didn't put it in because it would actually break the progression of the game. And I understand why. And they didn't actually want to put it in this new game. But considering the amount of people that wanted it, they've put it in the new game. They've structured the game better. The game has dismemberment. That's a big one, because even though you had a lightsaber in the last game, you couldn't really, chop arms off things like robots or like stormtroopers or anything. The only time you could chop things up was a droid in a special move, and that was pretty much it. And the head off a giant spider bug. That was it. But it looks like they've just put like the things people wanted in the first game in this. So the main things: bigger worlds, more customization, deeper skill tree, gadgets, like the grappling hook. The air and land mount thing's going to be huge. Side quests, like that blows my mind. Like, we're going to have side quests in the sequel. Logan, I know you're excited for this because it looks spectacular.
Yeah, this is my most anticipated game of the year. This, and then Starfield and Redfall. Like, I'm a huge Star Wars guy, so this was already going to be a day one for me. But just hearing everything, seeing the previews, reading the interviews, it looks like everything I loved about Law and Order taken up to the nth degree, and like everything's better. Fast travel now, the mounts, the customization, even darker story like Empire Strikes Back of a trilogy basically, and just the not, oh, my character's an amnesiac now and lost all their abilities. I have to relearn how to jump or swing a lightsaber or whatever. It's like, no, like, you're a Jedi Knight now. You're established. You know what you're doing, and we're going to treat you like you know what you're doing. Go have at it. Go save the galaxy. Like, thank you. Like, that, I can't tell you how many games I've played that have pulled that stunt and been so irritating. Like, I remember the first time was Metroid Prime 2. Echoes, I believe. Like, I got all my gear, and then you crash on this planet, and then boom, you lose all your stuff, and you have to redo everything. Like, I get it as a mechanic, but it is so annoying and time consuming. And I'm glad they fixed that.
Yeah, like the whole removal of powers thing, like we've seen it in so many games over the years now. Like you mentioned Metroid, I said like Deus Ex. One of the reasons why it would have really annoyed me with this game is that I'm replaying Jedi Fallen Order right now, and you don't have access to the double jump till you're about 50% into the game. Like, I couldn't remember that while we were playing it. I was thinking, when do I get double jump? It's like halfway through the game. And you kind of really miss double jump. But it's good that they're not going to have that in there. And honestly, it looks spectacular. Like, most of the time people talk about games on Twitter and in general, it's always about exclusive talk. But, like, we're getting a sequel months after it was announced to a game that was the second biggest game from the year it released. Like, that's huge. Like, this game was announced in December and it's released in April, and it's a Star Wars game. And when it comes to Star Wars games, we are going to see more, thankfully. We are going to see there's a brand new AAA open world action adventure game by Ubisoft. We're potentially going to see a teaser this year. And, Respawn, they're making multiple Star Wars games at the minute. So outside of Jedi Fallen Order, they're making 2 new Star Wars games. They're making a first-person shooter, which could be anything, a single-player first-person shooter from what I read, and an RTS, which I did not expect to see from Respawn. You mentioned earlier in the show, Logan, that Star Wars Eclipse, that's rumored to be, what was it, 2028?
Yeah, it's a hot minute. It could be next gen at this point.
Like, 2028's a bit of a while for that game, but we're finally getting Star Wars games regularly again, finally, this generation, because last gen, we got Star Wars Battlefront 1, which had no single-player campaign. We had Star Wars Battlefront 2, which had a really good campaign, but the multiplayer, well, we all know what happened with the microtransaction thing at first. Thankfully, they fixed it in the end. We got Star Wars Squadrons. Actually, technically, we got that this generation. And we got Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So let's just say 3, right? We got 3 new Star Wars games last generation. And this generation looks like we're going to get more, which is good. But yeah, if people haven't played Jedi Fallen Order, do it. You've got enough time. We've got a few weeks till the game comes out. It's going to be massive. It really is. Like, the game looks magnificent. I honestly, everything I've read about the game, I can't find anything wrong with it, which is weird because normally you can normally pick things apart and just maybe discover a new feature you didn't like. But no, they've been heads down. They've been full of work on this game since before Jedi Fallen Order released. So in the meantime, they've been paying attention to people's concerns, like the whole fast travel thing. Again, I've been replaying the first game. If you want to go back and collect stuff, it takes a long time to search certain planets and get back. Sometimes you can get lost, even though they aren't open world. And by the way, I love the fact that we still have games like this coming out that are relatively big, but aren't open world. We don't need open world everything. But yeah, Star Wars Jedi Survivor looks amazing. Comes out in a few weeks. Okay, Logan, so you want to talk about VR. I think I know why. It's because I can't remember who said it in the feed. Basically said that they speak for everyone and they want VR to come to Xbox. Am I right?
Well, yeah, there's that, and then then there's the PSVR 2 kind of faceplant, and other companies looking into VR stuff. Meta has what they're doing. They jacked the price up on the Quest 2, months after they had already released it. And it's just, I don't know, there just seems to be this weird, tug and pull about VR within the gaming community. Like, there's people, really loud group that claim it's really important and really big and people really, really want it and that they need to fix it. But then you look at it statistically and from, like what you see a lot of other people do, and it doesn't seem that much. And frankly, I think a lot of it is because of how expensive it is to do and make. Like, it would be one thing if Xbox made it to where, yeah, we'll have VR content on it. We're not going to develop it at all or detract our resources for it. But if you want to make it work on here and get it up and running and run it as a third-party software or third-party headset, have at it. Knock yourself out. Like, to me, I would be cool with that. And I think that's the best approach because personally, I don't want them to detract from cloud, from mobile, from console, PC, anything else, and divert it to VR when you see Sony has invested quite a bit in their VR and it's not doing so good right now. It's rotting in a warehouse somewhere. That's not great.
Yeah, I mean, before I go into my thought on it, I'll read this. This is from an article. It says American teens aren't excited about virtual reality. Out of 29% of people that own a VR headset, only 4% of those owners use it daily. Like, that's crazy. Like, those metrics. Like, that's such a small amount. And the problem is the games, right? You have, remember the Kinect? The Kinect had these really cool experiences. It had this really advanced technology, but we weren't getting these big AAA games or even, games that lasted a while. There were always these, party games and stuff. And that was the issue. We would still have Kinect today if we were getting these really cool games regularly. VR is having that problem. Outside of Half-Life Alyx and the Medal of Honor game, there isn't really many big games available on VR. So while you do have things like, Skyrim and all that stuff and Doom VR, everything's sort of these experiences. There's Job Simulator. I think there's a few other simulators available in VR. There's the Rick and Morty experience. I've played my mate's PlayStation VR, and they were really cool games. I played the Rick and Morty's thing, the Batman game, and Resident Evil 7 VR, which was pretty terrifying. But, I don't like VR because it makes me want to be sick. Right? That's the main reason why I can't use it. Really bad motion sickness. And I don't want Microsoft to put resources into VR because people have complained for years, saying Microsoft needs money put into content. Studios. Remember, at the beginning of last generation, they had 5 studios. They didn't even own Gears. So like they listened over time. They start putting money into games because look, we can all admit Microsoft's last generation they weren't putting out the first party content they should have. Now they're getting better, which is great. And they got to the point where they shadow dropped Hi-Fi Rush, but if they were focusing on VR, the studios would be split, and I think it's a waste of resources. Now, as you were saying, and I think we've said it on the show before, if they hypothetically said, "Hey, we have this VR headset, it works on the console, but third-party developers can put their games on it," I think that's cool, right? If they want to do that, they should. Because, there's all these games like Beat Saber and Pistol Whip, which would be popular on the console anyway. I don't think it's a smart move for Microsoft to invest in VR. I don't care how many times they've promised in the past, or if they said, they're going to wait for next gen, or said what, the Xbox One X was going to support VR. I don't care about all that stuff. Them investing money into VR doesn't help anyone, because the games aren't there, right? People talk about PlayStation's quality games and big games and all that stuff. We're not seeing that support in VR. And honestly, I don't think PlayStation fans want to see their AAA studios focused on VR. It's not a good move, and the technology still isn't there in my opinion. There's cool tech out now, don't get me wrong. I think the original PlayStation VR is actually really cool. But the AAA games aren't there. You don't have Uncharted VR. You don't have The Last of Us VR or God of War VR. Although you think God of War would make the most sense for VR. But the games aren't there. And then let's look at third-party developers. Ubisoft have cancelled all their third-party games, right? Splinter Cell and Assassin's Creed VR, cancelled. Activision, they aren't really making VR games. THQ Nordic, they aren't doing VR. Deep Silver, all that stuff, and basically any Embracer studio aren't doing VR. I don't know if Square Enix is doing any VR or not, but I don't think people want it. And if people were to say publicly on Xbox, do they want VR on Xbox? I guarantee you that the poll would be mostly negative. Nobody wants it. Tech is interesting, and Tom Henderson, who has gotten a lot of reports right in the past, has said, PlayStation is working on alternate devices that aren't PlayStation VR. Maybe there's a new device, category that comes out that's interesting, but I don't think the money is in VR because nobody's buying it. Nobody pays attention to it. Logan, when was the last time you heard anyone say, "Hey, I played this really cool big game on VR"? Not some little click play experience.
It's been a really long time. I'd say Half-Life Alyx was the last time I heard of a major title that wasn't just basically a side quest stretched into a VR experience or something. Half-Life Alyx was probably the last one, and that's been quite a while. And honestly, I think I like that PlayStation tries VR, but I think not making it compatible with VR1 games was already a major issue. I think had they made it compatible, it probably would have helped the sales quite a bit and the numbers and engagement. But aside from that, I'm not a VR guy personally, but if they had it available, I'd be happy for folks, and I'm not against them having it available at all. I just think their resources make more sense to do what they're doing and maybe stretch in those regards rather than doing this. But, if, what used to be Oculus or, Vive through Valve or, Samsung or whoever comes to them with the option to hey, we will do all the work. We just want to make it available on your platform. I would be all for it. Xbox going, have at it. And making it available for people. I'm not sure if they would actually do that or not.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to see where the talk goes because, I do see some people ask for it, but I don't think the numbers are there to make Microsoft go, "Oh, we need to put this VR headset out there." If they put third-party VR support headsets in there, cool. But outside of that, I don't think there's much point. Half-Life Alyx should not be the only AAA game we can announce for VR. We can throw in the Medal of Honor game as well. I think that's available on Oculus. So there's pretty much two big AAA VR games. Outside of them as ports and experiences. I'm not for it personally. And again, I can't use VR. I'd be sick all over the place. I need a bucket attached to my face, on top of the headset all the time. Like some people have really bad reactions to VR. Hell, I get sick watching a film in VR. Never mind, I should say a film in 3D. Like VR is like just a whole nother level of nausea.
Yeah, it'd give me a migraine. I can't do it either.
Yeah, like I put it like this: when I see 3D film at the cinema, I have to pop motion sickness tablets like Skittles. Like that shouldn't be a thing, but I have to do it. But with VR, it's just too much, way too much. But yeah, we'll move on. VR, not for me. I think Microsoft should maybe invest elsewhere. And speaking of investing, the CMA finally agreed to Microsoft's concessions. Are they going to look into it? And which is weird because for the longest time we've all suspected that they are going to be the ones that hold out the most. They've basically backed up Sony on every turn, and now things are beginning to turn around to the point where it looks like Microsoft might actually get Activision after all. Logan, you've been following this whole legal stuff way better than me because it just looks like Matrix code to me. So what's been going on?
Well, basically, the CMA released a provisional Phase 2 finding that had a whole bunch of data and stuff, and we're like, okay, we have two areas of concern. We have console theory of harm for PlayStation and stuff, and we have cloud concerns. But the problem was that a lot of the data they used was using a 5-year model for a year of results. I might be getting it mixed up, but basically they were trying to attribute how much money they would make in one capacity stretched for the other, and it just was not working. It's like, this clearly is not accurate. You can't use this data. It skews the results uncontrollably. And Microsoft made a point about raising that. And then they said, okay, you know what? We will go back and look at it. And lo and behold, they ran the numbers again using the correct method. And they're like, oh, how embarrassing is this? You're right. We used the wrong method. Our bad. And they removed that completely. So now it is only down to cloud in the CMA's concerns. And that's what the UK's concerns are. The EU's concerns are as well. So basically, it's looking like get these cloud deals done with all these companies, and you probably should be good to go in Europe. And then it comes to FTC and whether they're gonna, be Jon Snow with the sword at the Battle of the Bastards and just go you know what? We're just gonna stand here against everybody and just make a stand for this, or if they're going to get with the program, realize it's a losing case, and settle, or just allow concessions or whatever. Because at this point, it's looking kind of ridiculous if they were their case legally to go against what all the other jurisdictions are doing. So there's also been a bit of a hubbub in China right now because Chinese and U.S. Business negotiations and stuff have been a little tenuous in the news, and so apparently the Activision Blizzard thing is being slowed down in processes as they process other stuff as well. So in general, it might take longer in China, but overall everywhere else it seems to be almost greenlit. And they'll either beat the FTC in court or they'll settle, is what it looks like at this point.
Well, it's good it's finally kind of coming to a close because, for the longest time, last year I was saying, oh, it's going to be over in a few months. And then as the months were going on, that became a year. And here we are now in April 2023, and things are looking positive. Here's the thing, everyone benefits, right? They get Bobby Kotick out of the head of Activision. they restructure, they can actually have developers that feel safe in their environment, which should be the top priority if you think about it. They're the ones that make the games, the bloody developers. And, like, Phil Spencer has said in the past, like, he would like to bring back certain franchises. I would absolutely love Guitar Hero to come back, right? And I don't mean bring out a new one every year like they did back in the day, which kind of, like, ruined the franchise. Like, we just need a guitar, have a new service model that would work for songs. And, I think Phil Spencer has actually mentioned Guitar Hero as well. But, like, they have so many IP they could bring back. Like you mentioned, Skylanders. They could have Toys for Bob, or one of the other studios make, Crash Bandicoot, a new Crash Bandicoot, or a Banjo-Kazooie game. We could potentially see StarCraft return as an IP. We could see any amount of games come. Like, they have 20 support studios on Call of Duty. Like, whenever I play one of those campaigns and then the credits roll, as soon as I see that list of studios making those games, it's kind of sad. Like,
it's like an hour long.
yeah. Like if anyone ever gets bored or just wants to waste some time, watch the credit sequence for a Call of Duty game. Wow, like, there's so many people involved, and like do they really need that many people making Call of Duty? Because as far as I know, there's less Call of Duty, like, content release, like, every other month than we used to get. This isn't me going on about map packs again. Like, that's a topic for another day. But, like, as far as I know, we used to see more Call of Duty content, like, for the maps and all that stuff. But, like, those studios could get back to making games. I can get my Singularity 2. We can get a port of Singularity that would work on modern consoles. Nintendo is finally getting Call of Duty again. Like, I can't remember if it was Call of Duty Ghosts or Black Ops 2. One of those two games was their last Call of Duty game. So
Ghosts.
Yeah, so Ghosts. So that would have been 2013. Finally, like, there isn't really a modern first-person shooter on Switch outside of Modern Combat 5. And let's face it, that's a clone of a Call of Duty game. Like, I think it's going to benefit everyone. Like, I can't, like, the other day I posted, and I'll admit it was a little bit of a bait post. I said that everyone wins, or something like gamers win, when the Activision deal goes through, because literally no one loses. And obviously some people had a problem with that, but, like, literally no one loses. No one. Call of Duty's still going to be on PlayStation. Like, I do hope Microsoft sort out the crossplay situation, because every time I play Call of Duty, I put it into a match with PC people, and, if you have a mouse in that game, you're basically pinpoint accurate, and you have to go way into the settings to sort that out. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. Basically, my point is no one loses. Everyone has something to gain. And hell, we're going to have Call of Duty and a bunch of Xbox games that appear in these random streaming services worldwide. So, I mean, hey, although I'll admit, I never heard of most of those streaming services up until, like, last week or the week before. Like, Logan, did you hear about any of those streaming services they announced?
Nope. Every single one of those was new to me except for Nvidia Now. Like, that one I knew, but the other ones, no. But if you look at some of the CMA's documents they've released, those were on their list of potentially affected parties. So my guess is Microsoft was like, you know what? Hey, they're on the list. Let's make a deal with them. So wouldn't be surprised if we see more companies from that list get deals before this whole thing wraps up.
So again, more people just benefit from it. There are countries that do have their own, like, streaming services, which we probably haven't heard of, as we've seen. But yeah, like, I know people, like there's people that reply to me, by the way. If people ever get bored and want to laugh, whenever I post about Activision, there's one or two people that always reply to my posts. I won't name names, who are adamant that they think that the second the deal goes through, they think that Microsoft's going to pull Call of Duty from PlayStation, despite the fact all these contracts are going to be signed and stuff. They are unwilling to completely believe that, these contracts stop these things from happening. Like, when the deal goes through, Microsoft can't pull Call of Duty. They can't pull Diablo, or basically any of those games that's already on the platform. What they can do is make new titles in new franchises, basically, that can be exclusive. So, like, I think Singularity would fall into that, because honestly, nobody would care outside of a few people, because only the people that talk about Singularity nerds like me. But again, nobody loses. I'd be interested in chat. Does anyone in chat actually see anything bad about this actually going through? Because no one loses. And yeah, I think it's finally going to go through. Like, Logan, when do you think this thing will actually be done?
It depends really on the FTC and I guess China. Like, if China for some reason didn't want to approve it, it depends on whether they are part of the agreement necessary or not to get the deal closed. They can always amend it and say, okay, this country didn't like it, so they said no. We're going to remove that requirement from our deal to close. And then they can do it and then sort out how to deal with that country at a later date. Or in the FTC's case, because they have the pending court thing in August and June, um, that they could potentially just close anyway and call their bluff and say, look, we think your case is awful. So we're just going to close, and you try to get an injunction from a federal court and see what they think about your argument, because we think your argument is awful. So they could do that, or they could just play it out a little bit and it'll drag on a little bit. But I feel like late summer that they'll get this done.
I mean, that's good to hear, because like the fact that it's been a topic every week for the past year and like 2 months, it's a bit long in the tooth. Like, again, nobody really loses at all. I'd just be interested to see what actually happens, because like Activision, they clearly aren't happy with how it's being dragged out, and like I think the relationship between Sony and Activision is completely ruined. So while they still will see games in the end, I think like it's irreparably damaged.
That bridge is in Atlantis at this point.
Yeah, it's done. Like, I would love to be a fly in the wall on the wall at one of those meetings, but yeah, Activision, they just aren't happy. I can imagine like I know Microsoft, they do the whole like, you know, good guy thing, but like I can imagine them being furious the fact that this is being dragged out for over a year, costing X amount of billions and legal fees, and, you know, flying people to different countries and stuff. Like, hell, I think Microsoft actually had to. Phil Spencer had to actually take an Xbox, a Switch, and a PlayStation to tell the CMA and the European Commission how the gaming industry works. Like, that's stupid. He had to do it, unfortunately, but it's stupid nonetheless. But yeah, hopefully it'll be done by the end of the year. And like you're saying, the whole China thing could be slowing it down a bit. But hey, things are moving along, and, you know, who knows? Maybe over the next few months, with the whole US looking into the Japan thing, maybe it'll sort things out. I don't know. I'm being an optimist, so maybe we'll see more games come to Xbox, the Activision thing, everyone wins, all that stuff. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close the show?
No, just really, really looking forward to Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor. I just cannot wait for that, and then Redfall like the week after. So great times ahead of us.
Yeah, I mean, Dead Island also comes out soon. Bunch of games coming out in May. It's a good time. You know, we're gonna have a lot of new games to talk about. Again, Jedi Fallen Order 2. I'm gonna call it Jedi Fallen Order 2 by accident for, well, years to come, let's be honest. But yeah, Jedi Survivor comes out soon. Good time to talk about games. Again, Redfall comes out not long after. And like I think doesn't the new Zelda game also come out next month or this month?
Yeah, I think Tears of the Kingdom is before too long. I can't remember. I missed the latest direct, but I know it's this year.
Anyway, it's a good year for games, and plus there's like if all these games actually come out in time, it's probably going to rival 2007, in my opinion. And bear in mind, 2007 had Mass Effect, so like that's high praise coming from me. But yeah, everyone in chat's been awesome. Again, we've had maybe one fanboy, which is all right, you know. But again, everyone in chat's been awesome. We'll be back at the same time next week. Last week's video had to be pushed to this week because a certain company does not like it when you talk about them. I'll not say who. But basically, last week's video, it's coming out tomorrow. I think people really like it. Took a while to put together. And we'll be back at the same time next week for a new episode of the podcast. Again, everyone's been awesome. No fanboys or porn bots. Not really, so that's good. Again, everyone's been awesome. We'll be back next week. We are out. Peace.